When you look back at the era before World War I mean, this was a civilization in Europe that had just risen to a peak no other civilization before. More science, more social reform, very good morality, peace, a lot of peace, especially in England. And you found people writing poems and writing works of art in favor of war. So like Tennyson, before the Crimean War, wrote this poem, Maud, or after the Crimean War, wrote this poem, Maud, about this very neurotic love affair. Great poem, by the way. If you ever want to read it, it's just a terrific, terrific story poem. And at the end, after this neurotic love affair all goes wrong, the guy goes off to the Crimean War, and he's thrilled. He says, we have proved we have hearts and a cause. He says, let the war roll down like wind. We have proved we have hearts and a cause. We are noble still, and myself have awaked, as it seems, to the better mind. It is better to fight for the good than to rail at the ill. I have felt with my native land. I am one with my kind. I embrace the purpose of God and the doom assigned. Magic Mountain, too, famous novel by Thomas Mann, ends with the hero, after years of languishing in this TB ward, goes off to World War I, and he's just thrilled. It's just a kind of triumphant journey into the meaning of war. If you look at what's happening today in Trump's America, the answer is nothing. I mean, Scott Adams made this point, excellent point, very good observer, Scott. He made the point that there's no news. I mean, for the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks or so, it's been tough to do this show because nothing is happening. That's how good a president President Trump has been. He has made there no news because, as we all know, bad news is news. I mean, that's what they report. The economy still doing well, sometimes going up a little bit, sometimes a little blip, but it's really doing very well. No new wars, no big acts of terror. We're really actually this country is doing quite well. And I've noticed, by the way, that on the right, this has had some kind of effect. I've noticed some of the maybe, let's say, more unstable people on the right are losing their minds. I'm not going to mention names because I don't like to attack my own kind, as it were. Reagan's 11th commandment, you shall not attack your fellow Republicans. But I've noticed there are people who are going crazy, suddenly coming up with these wild conspiracy theories on the right, kind of racial things that I think conservatives should all reject entirely and usually do. But on the left, this make-believe struggle continues, this struggle against injustice. Everybody is a victim. Everybody is having a problem. What's the problem? What is the problem? Who is bothering you? If it's just the fact that people don't think you're a man when you're a woman or vice versa, if that's your worst problem, go get a job. If that's your worst problem, stop complaining, go do something of worth. This thing with Ilhan Omar is just a perfect example. Ilhan Omar is not a good person. She is not a good person. She should not be in government. She is not a supporter of the America that took her in after her family came over here from Somalia. And she gave a speech, I guess, last month in Los Angeles before CAIR, C-A-I-R, and it had included this little clip that has driven everyone crazy. It's cut one.
CARE was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties.
Now, the thing that everybody's focused on, of course, is that dismissive some people did something, as if it weren't, 11 of her co-religionists who the something that they did was wipe out 3,000 innocent people and destroy one of the landmark buildings of the country. So that's the thing they got. But everything that she says is wrong. CARE was not founded after 9/11. It was founded in the 90s, 94, 93. And it's a Hamas front group. Hamas is a terrorist group. Who is it? Andy McCarthy over at NRO wrote a book called The Great Jihad, I believe. He details how they got together, the Hamas people got together and said, we got to sell this stuff in a way that is going to be appealing to America. We're going to sell it in terms of social justice and due process and resistance. And we know this because the FBI was listening in on their conversations as they were doing this. They formed CARE to do this. CARE worked its way into the government. They, under the Obama administration, CARE was advising the FBI. And finally, they were indicted. They were not indicted. They were named as unindicted co-conspirators in a scam to funnel money to terrorist groups, including Hamas. But they are Hamas. CARE is a terrorist front group. So everything she did in there is despicable. It's not just that little remark. But Trump responded by posting this video of her saying some people did something and then showing the horror of 9/11. And so now she's the victim. All of a sudden, I don't have to say this, but it's whether the politicians or the media, whether it's Democrat politicians or the media, but I repeat myself because they're the same people, they have the same talking points. Oh, this is putting her in terrible, terrible danger. It's not. It's holding her responsible for her point of view. It's victim girl. So Alexandria Occasional Cortex, we'll just use her as an example. She went off on the New York Post because they posted a headline with the 9/11 pictures, and AOC is appalled that she's shocked to find that anyone should hold Ilhan Omar responsible for her words in this casino.
The level to which Republican and conservative groups, whether they are official party apparatuses, sending out emails, calling me and others domestic terrorists, or whether it's Rupert Murdoch of the New York Post printing on the front page to circulate all around New York City an image that is incredibly upsetting and triggering for New Yorkers that were actually there and were actually in the radius, that woke up one morning or were in their schools and didn't know if they were going to see their parents at the end of the day. To elicit such an image for such a transparently and politically motivated attack on Ilhan, we are getting to a level where this is an incitement of violence against progressive women of color.
Everything about this is opposite day. Everything about it is opposite day. Everything is wrong about that AOC quote. It's not she says, oh, it's so triggering to bring up 9/11, but it's not triggering to dismiss 9/11 in front of a terrorist front group like CARE. That's not triggering. And then she goes off on Dan Crenshaw, on Congressman Dan Crenshaw. She sends out a tweet to Crenshaw, who also criticized Ilhan Omar. She says, you refuse to co-sponsor the 9/11 Victims Compensation Fund, yet have the audacity to drum resentment towards Ilhan with completely out of context quotes. In 2018, right-wing extremists were behind almost all U.S. domestic terrorist killings. Why don't you go do something about that? So this is AOC, whose biggest fight, whose World War II is this climate hysteria hoax. This is her big fight, right? And here's Dan Crenshaw, Navy SEAL, and she's saying to him, why don't you do something about terrorism? Here's his response.
It's almost not worth responding to. Okay, but let's unpack this. Okay, so she thinks that co-sponsoring a bill, by the way, that isn't out of committee yet, means that's how you're defending 9/11 victims. Last I checked, I thought I did defend 9/11 victims. I went overseas and tried to make sure that this attack never happened again.
Exactly.
And made sure to take the fight to the enemy that committed it. It's not just her either. It's also her counterpart in New York, Max Rose. I mean, the fact that they would double down on this and try to provide cover for Ilhan Omar, when all you have to do really is say, hey, you know, she misspoke, or maybe she didn't mean it that way. Why don't you say that?
Well, they don't say it because it's not true. She didn't just misspeak, and I'll show you that in just a minute. I'll prove it to you in just a sec. But the thing that's so wonderful, because it really does go back to the 60s and this kind of upheaval we had in this country when the children of the people who won World War II, the children of the people who ended segregation, the children of the people who actually transformed this country, brought this country into the 20th century and out of the blood heap of the 20th century into the preparation for this revolution that we've had that has made everybody so much richer, so much more comfortable, so much more attached and connected and all this, that the children of those people, instead of going to war in Vietnam, burned their draft cards, burned their bras, made a big fuss about what a wonderful, major struggle they were in against injustice, while other people went off to Vietnam and fought a very, very difficult war that actually did curb Chinese imperialist aggression. The Chinese looked at us in Vietnam and said, if these people are crazy enough to spend that much blood and treasure on Vietnam, maybe they'll do it anywhere. Maybe we should just dial it back. And it really did work. I mean, it really, I'm not even going to say whether the war should have been fought at all. I don't know exactly, but it seems to me that the effect of that, those people were doing a lot more. It's that virtue signal, that need for meaning that comes from fighting evil. I mean, there's a lot of this in our society right now. And look, it's amazing to me. None of this would be so bad. I don't mind Democrats protecting Democrats. But it really is terrible that the media chimes in, that the media is now the cover-up artists. They're the people covering up for the FBI. They're the people covering up for John Brennan. They're the people covering up for the assault on our electoral system from the Democrat Party. And they're the people saying that, you know, listen, Ilhan Omar is an elected official. She made despicable comments to a despicable group in a despicable cause. It's one thing for the Democrats to gather around her, the AOCs and the Rashida Tlaibs. It's one thing for them to do it, but for the media to do it, to chime in the exact same words with the exact same ideas, that is seriously a problem. As an example, they're all doing it, but here's Brian Stelter.
These viral videos and tweets are how we argue about the future of America, but so much of it is based in bad faith. These outrage cycles corrupt us. Omar's comment was used as a weapon against her, including by President Trump, who has pinned this anti-Omar video to the top of his Twitter page. But there's something bigger going on here with this story. It tells us something about the right-wing rage machine and about how news priorities are set. The history of the United States is a tug of war over who belongs and who's equal and who has power. It's the biggest story of all. And yet, those of us in the press oftentimes cover this just in tiny, discrete bits. We put a very small frame on the biggest story. I think we do a much better job when we widen way out. And part of widening out involves showing, where did this controversy come from? How was it created in the first place? Who created it? Who stands to benefit from being created and who stands to lose? Who stands to suffer?
Okay, fair enough, Potato Head. Let's take a look at where this came from, all right? Because the idea is she was just misspeaking. She was just taken out of context. It's so unfair. We're putting her in danger. But remember, she is an elected official. She is there. When she speaks, we can criticize. When she speaks, the president can criticize her. I mean, she is a person responsible to the people, responsible to the process. So Brian Stelter is defending her, talking about a right-wing rage machine, instead of talking about the actual things she says and what she represents. Again, elected official. Let's go back to 2013. Now, by the way, I want to just mention that some of this stuff, some of these links came from The Federalist. I believe it's, what's his name? Warren Henry. Warren Henry wrote a very good piece about this in The Federalist. You should check it out. The Federalist, a very good venue. And I just want to give him credit for some of this stuff. But this has been making the rounds all over the place. This is a 2013 interview where she's talking about a professor and the way he spoke about terrorist groups. But don't just listen to the affect, the laughing at these terrorist groups, these laughing at these people who slaughter Americans and slaughter innocents and slaughter innocent Muslims as well. Don't just listen to that. Listen to the actual things she says.
It was the thing that was interesting in the class was every time the professor said Al-Qaeda, he sort of like his shoulders went up and, you know.
Yeah, he's in command here.
Al-Qaeda, you know,
he's an
Hezbollah,
expert.
And it was, you know,
What's his name? What to put his name on the air?
Where
does he live?
Saying his name.
Yeah.
You probably get to see him on CNN.
Yeah, of course. I love those guys.
But you know, but it is that you don't say America with an intensity. You don't say England with an intensity. You know, you don't say the army with an intensity.
Qaeda.
But you say these names because you want that word to carry weight. You want it to leave something with
it has a cultural meaning, not just
exactly.
meaning.
So it's said with a deeper voice.
So what she's saying is that a weight of guilt, a weight of fear, a weight of terror is being put on these terrorist groups. Why isn't that being put on America and on England and on the U.S. Army? Why aren't they the same as Al-Qaeda and Hezbollah? That is what she's saying. And if you doubt that, here's one more cut that I took from the same interview of her basically blaming America for terrorism. And this is a woman, again, taken in from Somalia. She works her way into the United States Congress. This is the kind of welcoming country she's come from. She talks about democracy. Now she's suffering democracy, which is the fact that we get to criticize the words that come out of her mouth without being called right-wing rage machines, without being blamed for the death threats. And of course, death threats are always wrong. You shouldn't be threatening her. No one should be threatening her. That has nothing to do with it. But criticizing her and threatening her are not the same thing. Just listen to what she's saying here, though, about who's to blame for terrorism.
Nobody wants to face how the actions of the other people that are involved in the world have contributed to the rise of the
Violence.
radicalization and the rise of terrorist acts. So usually most people want to not look internal and see what what
Face the
about
real.
their actions
Yeah.
that makes another react. For us it's always I must have not done anything. Why is this happening to me? And nobody wants to take accountability of how these are byproducts of the actions of our involvement in other people's affairs.
These are byproducts. Terrorism is a byproduct of our involvement in other people's affairs. So she's talking in defense, in rationalization of people who have kept their own people in poverty in order to support their violent power with dreams of slaughtering the Israelis, of pushing the Israelis into the sea. That is what they've been selling to these people who could have become part, just like everybody else who was displaced during this period of time in history. Everybody else was displaced. Everybody else has found their way except for these people because these terrorist groups keep them as essentially as pawns in a political game. And she is blaming that on America and England. She, who has benefited from the kindness, the generosity, the democracy of America, she is not the victim. She is an appalling person. She's an appalling person with an appalling philosophy who should be bounced out of Congress. If Nancy Pelosi had the power that she pretends to have, she would get her out of Congress. She does not belong there. No one should be threatening her. No one should be attacking her in any real way. But to criticize her and to point out what an appalling human being has gotten into the United States Congress is not bigoted. It's not wrong. It's exactly what democracy is supposed to do. So the struggle is not real. Her struggle is not real.